Welcome back to the program. You are listening to the Atlas Radio Show live on the Oracle Broadcasting Network. It is August 1st, and with us today at the top of the second hour, this is our short segment. We'll be going to a break here in about 5 minutes. But we have the iconoclastic anti-war icon, Miss Cindy Sheehan. Cindy has been a force in the anti-war movement since 2004 when her son, Casey, was killed in action. And we are honored to have Miss Cindy Sheehan on the show. Cindy, are you with us?
I am.
It is an absolute pleasure.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's so early. It's so
Especially
early on
you. Aren't you from California?
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock here. It's not that bad.
Well, we all know that you're an early riser because you get her done, Miss Sheehan, and we've been all our listeners have been watching your efforts for so long, and we're all such big admirers of what you do, Cindy. And this is just a really quick short segment. But we want to talk today, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time with you, so we really want to kind of just we want to hit the future more than the past. Since Obama, and you can speak on this real quick before we go to the break, but since Obama, we've seen a radical drop-off in the efforts of the anti-war movement. And one of my main questions for you, Ms. Sheehan, is what happened? Where did we go wrong? And how can we get back on track?
Well, I don't think it's so much the fault of, grassroots people in the anti-war movement. I think many of the leading organizations that have the lists, that have, the people power, have, they were co-opted by the Democratic Party. And so their big impetus was to elect Democrats, and once that happened, then their missions were accomplished. But we know that electing Democrats doesn't mean the end to the war. So what we have to do is just realize that it's not, who's in charge of the empire. It's the empire, and unless we organize to work against it, no matter who's president, then nothing will really change.
So what you think happened is that the majority of the anti-war movement, the real push behind the anti-war movement was simply just to get Democrats in office?
Well, no, I know that not, like I said, the national organizations, not people on the ground. Many people on the ground believe that getting Democrats elected will end the war, and obviously that's not true. So, but, organizations like MoveOn.org and United for Peace and Justice are big behind the Democratic Party. And that really, as far as I'm concerned, takes the wind out of the sails of the movement.
Yeah, and it's depressing. I mean, at the end of the Bush era, we had such momentum. We had such anger and such outrage, and people were in the streets, and people were, doing, talking about it all the time, doing everything that they could. And then we had this, like tranquilizer shot of hope and change, and we all went to sleep. And
right. Well, I like to call it hypnosis. We were put to sleep by the hypnosis of the Obama administration, which is super unfortunate.
Yeah. We've got about 10 seconds, but what are some, when we come back, we want to talk about what are some of the things that we can do to get this movement back on track? What do we need to be talking about? What kind of efforts do we need to be making in our day-to-day efforts to get this forward? And we've only got about 30 seconds, so we're going to the break right now. So if you could keep your thoughts together. Corey, take us out.
Yep. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more about that. You are listening to the Atlas Radio program right here on the Oracle Broadcasting Network.
Welcome back to the program. You are listening to the Atlas Radio Show live on the Oracle Broadcasting Network. It's August 1st, and with us today we have the iconoclastic Miss Cindy Sheehan. She's honored us with her presence this morning early on the Pacific Coast over there. And Miss Cindy, we were discussing about the anti-war movement, where what happened, why it's no longer where we were, and what I really want to talk about today is the future and how we can get some of that back, and what we need to be doing right now to get that movement back on track and to end these wars.
Well, that's a great question, because we were very active, as we already pointed out, during the Bush administration, and not so much successful about it. And I just got an email from one of the leading so-called anti-war organizations here, United for Peace and Justice, a coalition of, a broad-based coalition of anti-war or justice groups. And some of the groups that belong to United for Peace and Justice are still very active in, doing anti-war activism. But United for Peace and Justice just sent something out basically saying opinion polls say that the war in that Americans don't agree with the war in Afghanistan. I think it was 53% of Americans, now disagree with the war. And so United for Peace and Justice thinks it's time for us to get busy to organize, to do activities to end the war. Well, so are we based on opinion polls now? And so now that the majority of Americans think the war is wrong, the war is wrong when the war has been wrong all along. And so that puts us at like an 8-year disadvantage on Afghanistan. So we have a lot of catch up to do, but we also have a lot of rekindling to do, because like we pointed out, many people have gone back to sleep thinking that Obama is going to change anything.
Do you think that one of the problems that we saw that happen is because the anti-war movement is it has generally been a broad-based coalition, that there had been some factionalization due to the whole right-left paradigm and people going with McCain and Obama and parting ways for that time, and now we need to find a way to bring ourselves back together on common ground?
Well, we have been broad-based, but unfortunately, our focus has been too narrow. In the anti-war movement, our focus has been on Iraq, when there was a whole Afghanistan thing that was never correct. And we need to, in the movement, make connections between the economy and the war, and the environment and war, and how killing and using violence for foreign policy problems is wrong. So even though we do have a lot of, millions of people around this country with millions of different philosophies, there's some things that we should be able to agree on and organize around, and, not be so narrowly focused, not to be afraid to connect the dots, not to be afraid that Israel's oppression of the Palestinian people is also wrong, and also connected so profoundly to U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah, and it's really connected to profoundly connected, like you say, to the reaction of these factions in the Middle East against Western powers. That I don't see how people can be so blind as not to see the ghettoization of an entire population going on. I mean, we saw this stuff in World War II. We saw the German machine ghettoize Jewish communities and fence them in and cage them in and starve them out and do all the very same things that Israel is doing to Palestine and the West Bank right now, or the Gaza Strip.
Absolutely, but what the unfortunate thing is in the anti-war movement is that the leaders of the movement and of these, I have a good friend, Reverend Lennox Yearwood, and he calls it the peace industrial complex. They see these things and they know these things, but
song that she sang made the whole grove to ring. My Billy has